Meeting of the City Commission. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. As you all know, we also start our meetings with a land acknowledgement. So we would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. Thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same. Now I'll hand it over to Sarah from the clerks.
Commissioner Shaw? Here. Commissioner Werner?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson? Here. Commissioner Stanley? Here. Commissioner Treadwell?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
I am present.
Mayor?
Here. All right, and with that, we'll move on to announcements from the city manager.
Hi, yes, thank you, Mayor Shamro. I have a few announcements and updates tonight. Strategic planning. The deadline to submit an RFP for strategic planning was Friday, March 1st. We received 8 bids. We began to, I just printed them out and began to review them today with Interim Assistant City Manager Chet Janik. We will begin a process of reviewing the bids, and I will keep you all apprised of next steps. It's very exciting. The Assistant City Manager search. The deadline to apply for ACM was February 21st. We received 86 applications. After reviewing and sorting the candidates, and a big thank you to Christine, Jason, and Allison in my HR department, we identified 20 candidates to move forward to the next step. That next step was a survey of 6 questions, and that was sent to 20 candidates, which is due by 11:59 p.m. tonight, and 18 out of the 20 have already responded with incredibly thoughtful answers. So we will be letting the candidates, which candidates move forward no later than this Friday. Union negotiations, we have those set to begin the first week in April. It's on the calendar, so I look forward to keeping you posted there. Budget season is in full swing. The budget calendar has been distributed, and departments are all working on their budgets ahead of our in-person meetings beginning next week. EMS planning. A multi-department meeting was held last Tuesday, February 27th, with the fire department to discuss the necessary next steps to move the EMS department forward. Chief Teller gave a great recap of where we have come from so far and the work that's been done since the millage passed last November. One of those steps will be for City Commission to approve 10 new positions, which will be on the agenda for 3/18. I do have a meeting with Chief Teller tomorrow to keep the timeline moving forward. The creation of the EMS department touches many other city departments: finance, assessing, HR, legal, engineering, facilities, garages. The garage, you get the picture. I'm sure I'm missing one or two. But we're working together on a holistic approach, and the whole staff group will meet again in early April. And then at some point, we will do like a where we stand presentation so that we can let the community know where we are in those steps. Traffic engineer RFP and discussion of 4-way stops. Engineering has put out an RFP for a consultant for general civil and traffic engineering, and they put that RFP out today. It's due the first Friday in April. Once we've established a firm to support traffic engineering, we'll pick that conversation back up on 4-way stops. So I just wanted to give an update there. And then finally here, and this has been something that you've heard about a little in the news, but solutions-driven community conversations on homelessness. Solutions-driven. I've been brainstorming some ideas on how to have a constructive dialogue in the community and with the community on homelessness beginning late spring this year. As you can see, the updates that I just gave you are the matters that need to get done in this late winter, early spring phase. I'd like to bring forward my ideas for facilitated discussions that maybe we could launch in late spring and then maybe reconvene in early fall. So I'm hoping, I've got some ideas in the works, and I'm hoping to present those ideas in a few months. Thank you.
Thank you. Any updates from the Deputy City Clerk?
Just a few. Meetings scheduled this week are, the Planning Commission will meet on Tuesday, March 5th at 6 p.m. here in the chambers. Just a reminder, Planning Commissions are now at 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. The Mobility and Parking Advisory Board will meet Wednesday, March 6th at 11 a.m. in the committee room. The Joint Rec Authority will meet Wednesday, March 6th at 7 p.m. in the chambers. The Parks and Rec Commission will meet this Thursday, March 7th at 6:30, also in the chambers. And community updates, as a reminder, as I'm sure many of us know, the MDOT, or Michigan Department of Transportation, prepares to begin their major construction project of reconstructing the Grandview Parkway. Please be aware that weather permitting, construction and detours will begin for segment 1 on March 10th. And just to remind commissioner, staff, and members of the public to speak into the microphone so those watching at home and the recording of this meeting is easily heard. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a proclamation today for Dolly Parton Imagination Library that Bob Robbins was hoping to be here for. He's one of the people who works very hard on that. He is not feeling well, and he had said that Sally Thompson was going to be here, but I don't believe, oh, there you are, Sally, sorry. Well, please join me at the podium. Thank you. Please come on up to the podium. Here, I'll read the proclamation. Okay. City of Traverse City proclamation declaring March 2024 as Dolly Parton's Imagination Library Enrollment Awareness Month. Whereas March is National Reading Month, a celebration that encourages reading for all ages and promotes reading as a key feature for learning, social, and professional development. Dolly Parton's Imagination Library is an award-winning, evidence-based program that inspires children to read and helps them to gain the skills they need to start school successfully. And whereas parents are a child's primary teacher in early childhood, a brief window of opportunity when a child's brain is at its peak for learning language and words, and children who have books in their homes and are read to frequently during the first 5 years of life are more likely to be prepared for kindergarten and reading at a grade level by the end of 3rd grade. And whereas over half the young children in our 5-county region are not ready for kindergarten and are not reading at grade level by the end of 3rd grade, and whereas Dolly Parton's Imagination Library is now available to all children under the age of 5 in the 5-county region as a community gift for raising readers, always at no cost to parents. And when a parent enrolls their child in Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, a new age-appropriate book will be delivered to the child's home in the child's name every month until the child's 5th birthday. And whereas every citizen can help build awareness in their families, in their social circles, and in their workplace to the availability and importance of participation in this program, and the City of Traverse City is committed to supporting young families and their preschool children. Now, therefore, I, Amy Shamrow, Mayor of the City of Traverse City, proclaim March 2024 as Dolly Parton's Imagination Library Enrollment Awareness Month. So first I want to thank you, Sally, and hand this to you. Though I'm maybe not everyone knows, but my day job, if you will, is working in children's literacy as part of a coalition, including Dolly Parton, and watched it grow through these counties very quickly. You've all done a good job. So I'm going to give you the mic to talk about it for a couple minutes here.
Thank you. Thank you for helping us bring awareness to the Dolly Parton Imagination Library program. We have been working since 2016 and started with 24 kids, and now we are serving over 4,500 in the Grand Traverse region, and our biggest accomplishment is opening it to all the counties in the 5-county region, so we're thrilled about that. I know I can speak from my whole board that we believe in this program. We believe in its impact on early childhood literacy, and although we're serving 4,500 children at the moment, we know there are many more out there. So this awareness opportunity is wonderful, so we thank you for that. Okay.
Or maybe not.
It's okay. I have little cards. I'm happy to pass those out. But if you just go to Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, GTR, on the website, it's something, it'll come up. It'll direct you to where you can sign up. You put in your zip code, and it will ask, and then it takes you to a site, and it'll tell you whether or not your area is being served by an affiliate. So, and everybody in the GTR in the 5-county region is at this moment. So, but even if anybody knew of somebody somewhere else in the state of Michigan or anywhere, you can always just go to Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. They put in their zip code, and it'll tell you if there's service in that area or not.
Thank you so much. We're very appreciative of it.
Thank you.
And I'll help underline that briefly while we settle back in, that any child under the age of 5, you can sign them up in the 5-county region, and the books are delivered free of cost. So it's a great program, and anybody can qualify for, or can sign up for it, so.
On a personal note, I signed up my child on it, and we get the book every month, and
that's
it's
great.
wonderful. It's wonderful.
So exciting.
Well, see, we've got testimonial here, that's great. All right, well, and now back to you, Ms. Lutz, to do our consent calendar, please.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for individual consideration by the commission, and such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. 1, consideration of approving the minutes of the February 5th, 2024 and February 21st, 2024 meetings of the City Commission. Approval recommended. 2, consideration of authorizing an amendment to the contract for the US 31 M37 water and sewer utilities replacement to update the project costs. Approval recommended. 3, consideration of authorizing an agreement for the preparation of a consolidated plan and 5-year action plan which is required for the city's designation as an entitlement community for the community development block grant funds and preparation of a second-year action plan and fair housing analysis. Approval recommended. 4, consideration of authorizing a contract for kitchen equipment at the senior center. Approval recommended. 5, consideration of authorizing a contract for senior center furniture. Approval recommended. 6, consideration of authorizing a purchase order for the replacement of bathroom facility at West End Beach and for a new facility at the RB parking lot adjacent to the volleyball courts. Approval recommended. 7, consideration of rescinding a traffic control order for which prohibited parking between the hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday on the south side of the 400 block of West 13th Street, Glen Loomis, and consideration of making permanent traffic control orders which, 1, allow residents to be exempt from restricted parking limits with a valid parking permit in specified locations within Central Neighborhood, Boardman Neighborhood, Old Town Neighborhood, and Kids Creek Neighborhood. 2, provide for a 30-minute loading zone on the south side of Garland Street at Breakwater. 3, prohibits parking on the west side of Oak Street, south of West Front Street. And 4, requires a stop at the intersection of Boyd Avenue and Fern Street. Approval recommended. 8, consideration of authorizing the city treasurer/finance director to close out the Macaulay Trust Fund and transfer the approximate $55,000 balance to the Senior Center Construction Fund, which is consistent with the stated purpose of the original donation to the Macaulay Trust Fund. Approval recommended.
Excellent. Would any commissioner like to remove any item from the consent calendar? Go ahead, Tim.
Item 2, please.
You. And Jackie?
Number 3, and a quick question that relates to numbers 4 and 5.
If it's just a general, we can do it. If you think it's going to need to have staff called up, we'll just pull them. So,
It may need staff.
okay.
And number 6.
Okay. Sorry, Jackie, what were yours? 4, 5?
4 and 5,
And then 6. So,
as well as 3.
yes. We don't have, yeah. So we're basically, okay, 7 goes there. Okay. Any from the public? Would the public like to remove any items from our consent calendar? Seeing none, I'll take a motion for an amended. There are still items left on the consent calendar, so I need a motion to amend for the amended consent calendar, please. Thanks,
I
Jackie.
so move.
Okay,
Support.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So we'll start with item number 2. We do them in the order in which they were pulled. And go ahead, Commissioner Warner, with your questions or comments.
Yeah, question, and I did have the opportunity to interact directly with Mr. Krieger earlier today. So the project came in quite a bit higher as far as what we'd estimated here, and then what Elmer's through MDOT said it will cost, to the tune of $1.1 million. And then through value engineering, working with Elmer's, the city staff was able to get that essentially cut in half. And lots of documents attached to the packet, but nothing really tells the story of how they managed to achieve that savings of over $500,000. And so that's what I had asked Art in person, and he told an excellent story. And I said, could you please share that with us and the public? Then we have a better understanding. Because when I read it, it made it sound like, oh, the 6-inch PVC. Suddenly, we asked Elmer's again more nicely, and they cut the cost some tremendous amount, and that's not the case at all. So,
Yeah, go ahead, Art, if you want to.
Good evening, Art Krieger, Director of Utilities with the city. Yeah, the conversation with Commissioner Werner this afternoon was focused on some information that I did receive just today from Elmer's. Nick Broad is the project manager for the very large project that's going to be starting very soon. And so he broke down some additional things, but the main reason, say for the 6-inch PVC price change, it was $355 per foot initially in the bid, went down to $155 per foot, so that is a drastic change, and it adjusts the price by about $347,000 right there. But what I want to go back to is like unit price in a contract like this is critical to get a price with the bid. So engineers typically include a lot of items that may be used, not saying they'll all be used. That way the contractor doesn't have the city over the barrel later, so to speak. When we need something that wasn't bid in the contract, they can just name their price. Most of the time they're fair. We have to negotiate occasionally on things like that. But we don't want to give them the opportunity to just name any price. So when you get a unit price bid, there's some estimated quantities in there. I just wanted to hit on that briefly of why unit price contracts could be a little bit more out of the bids at the bid stage. So one of the significant changes to allow the price reduction so greatly was the fact that we're able to close down that section between Peninsula Drive and Garfield and do a full width construction. It helps with the time needed to address that part of the project, which has a lot of utilities of water and sewer related items in it. And it also, in that item alone, the 6-inch PVC pipe, which is for sewer service lines from the private buildings, you know, within the right-of-way. Those, to do a part with construction, they were going to have to put in sheet pile, steel sheet piling temporarily in the middle of the road. They would build the pipe up to that, cap it, later have to come back from the other side, pull out the sheet piling when they switch traffic over. So it was a very high labor, high cost operation to do that. So by rerouting the traffic, it was a very good cost-saving opportunity there. So that was just one of the examples that we talked about today. There were other items. We went through the water main project portion very detailed with Elmer's, and we discussed a lot of their methods and what they had wanted to do versus maybe what the plans were designed, and they were being very practical with us, and they were coming up with items we didn't necessarily need for building the water main. So such as putting in line stops to keep people in service longer while we're working on a piece of the water main beyond that. So there was a lot of discussion over the last 8 or 9 months with Elmer's, a lot of meetings, and they were very forward-thinking in helping the city save this money, because they knew the pricing, you know, came in quite a bit higher. So it's a big win, I would say, for the city to save at an estimated over $500,000. The unit price contract, it's actually $546,000 estimated, but we'll only pay as the city for what they actually build. So again, it's estimated. Once you dig and you find things in the ground that you didn't know were there, you know, it can add some costs here and there too. But so we did put in a 10% contingency for those unknowns. So, open it up for any questions.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. And I would take a motion then. It's a long
I'll
memo.
move that the mayor and city clerk execute an amendment to the contract with MDOT for the US 31 M37 Water and Sewer Utilities Replacement Contract Number 22-5479, Control Section NH2813, Job Number 131655CON, to reflect an updated not-to-exceed cost of $3,323,031, which includes a 10% contingency, with such contract subject to approval as to its substance by the city manager and is formed by the city attorney, and that the city commission action of March 6, 2023 be superseded.
Support.
Thank you. Motion from Commissioner Warner, second by Commissioner Stanley. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any final comment from the commission on this? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Now on to item number 3 about the community development block grants. And sorry, was that you, Jackie?
That
Yes,
was
okay.
me.
Please
Thank
go ahead
you.
with your questions.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions on this item. One related to timing and one related to cost. In terms of timing, I noticed from the timeline in the documentation that we seem to have a hard deadline of May 17th for submission of this plan to HUD to enable us to receive the Community Development Block Grant. However, I think we were notified of it back in October of last year, and so I'm a bit concerned that we're rushing the process and putting extra strain on staff and the consultant under these circumstances. And then also I wondered about the cost. While it seems that up to 20% of the amount of the block grant, which is roughly $370,000, could be used for preparation, outsourcing of the preparation. That's 20% of that grant that doesn't get used for housing. And I know that I'm sensitive to the fact that we've just doubled our on-staff planning capacity, and just so I'm concerned about cost and timing both, and would appreciate some more rationale, perhaps.
Would you like to take that, Liz?
Yeah, I can speak to that. We worked really closely in my very first hours on the job in the planning department to make sure that we could meet this timeline and this deadline. And this was actually brought up in the governance meeting where I talked about the timing. We just need to submit a draft by May 17th. HUD can come back with questions, comments, concerns, and then we can resubmit. But we need to make sure that we have that initial submission to HUD by May 17th. And Leslie here is from the planning department. She can speak more to that. Every year, up to 20% of that CDBG grant can be used for administration. Many communities use it to actually pay for staff. You don't have to use the full 20%. You don't have to use any of it. But as we are a new entitlement community and our staff are getting caught up on all of the regulations, I really do recommend that we go with this recommendation with Wade Trim. This is what they do. And so they do it for a lot of communities. So the timing for them to do this for us, I have not heard any concerns from the planning department on that. It's a nice amount of money every year coming in, but it's also not super complicated. Some communities, if they get in the millions, you'd have a much more complicated plan to put together. So, and we have weekly check-ins with HUD, so we've been really working on this. And even during the transition, I took a few of those Zoom calls. So I hope that I've answered your question. I think that the cost is warranted this time around as our staff get used to the Community Development Block Grant process. It's through the federal government. It's a lot of learning and a lot of new databases and all of the things that go along with just getting that startup. Now, moving forward, as we update these plans and as our staff become fluent in the language of HUD and CDBG funding, I think we would see less and less of that 20% needing to be used for administrative costs. And if you have any other, if you'd like to make any comments, with your permission, Mayor.
course.
We do have our Deputy Planning Director here to speak on this, and she's been working really hard to keep this timeline, so thank you, Leslie.
And Leslie, we can have you come up in a minute, but Tim, did you have your hand up too? Oh, Heather does.
Yeah, I had similar concerns that, you know, the paperwork came in October, and we've got to have it in by May, and then July is when the money comes. And I just wondered, given the huge panoply of options that are being offered, if staff is considering focusing on anything in particular, you know, homeless facilities, emergency payments for 90 days, these are all problems that we're having right now. Adding ADUs, I mean, is there anything that staff is focusing on? Because obviously, we have no comments on this right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you like me to?
Yeah, go ahead,
to the-
Leslie. Oh, sorry.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leslie Sichterman. I'm the Deputy Planning Director. I haven't met all of you yet, and I have been working on this in the last few weeks and have learned a lot in the last few weeks, and actually have spoken to a lot of other entitlement communities, talked to them about how much similar plans have cost them. They're all in the 40,000s for the actual plan document. We're around 30,000, so I think we're getting a pretty good value because we do have a less complex plan to consider. But as to any specific programming or projects that we're as staff looking at right now, there's nothing in particular. I think we're really going to let the process help to dictate that. But there are eligible projects and things that we can spend money on. And we'll have to make sure that we're within those parameters, of course. But again, in talking to some of the other entitlement communities, it's interesting, a lot of them have asked me, well, what are you planning on doing? And I've thrown out a couple of things that I've heard talked about, and they all are very interested and very engaged. And there are statewide groups that meet. There's a conference coming up. Learned all about those. I think there's a good group of people and great field office in Detroit that's been working with us, again, with weekly phone calls, keeping up to date on what's happening, because we're the first entitlement community, new one in Michigan for many years. Nobody at the field office has even dealt with a new entitlement community. So they're learning as well as we're learning.
Go ahead, Heather. You still
Yeah,
have
it's interesting seeing us up there with Eagle Pass, Texas, and Bozeman, Montana. So you would think that there needs to be a great deal of investigation that goes on to look at what our situation here in Traverse City is and how we are affected by the outlying areas, because we are. Are they going to be using the master plan documentation that has, I mean, are they going to start all over again? How is that going to work?
Again, I think we'll see how this process unfolds. As part of the RFP, we did send along some links to documents that would be helpful for them to be apprised of and know that exist, at least. And, you know, I think it's my impression that because there's an annual action plan that will come out every year and a new 5-year plan every 5 years, there are opportunities to make adjustments and have a broad plan that covers lots of things, and then the annual action plan can hone in on what makes most sense for that next year. So, you know, I know it's tight timing, but it seemed like it was a good chance to take in order to get this extra funding. Otherwise, we would lose the first year of funding if we didn't jump on this now. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Go ahead, Jackie.
So it's fair to say that this plan that we're buying is a completely separate creature from our master plan or our strategic plan, which is to come. So this is a freestanding plan oriented specifically toward this grant opportunity.
I don't know that I would call it a grant opportunity as much as a funding
Okay, a
source.
funding opportunity.
But yes, it's all going to be housing related, and part of the, again, needs to meet all of the standards under the HUD regulations, and I think that's it. Yeah.
And Liz, you had some insight
And-
on that. too.
and-
Well, really quick, Liz was going to say something, but my she was probably
I
in the
lost
way.
my train of thought. No, this is essentially an in perpetuity funding source that, and these guidelines for this 1-year plan and this 5-year plan are coming from HUD. We are required to do, and if we don't have that draft submitted to HUD by May 17th, we're risking losing our first year of funding. And that's why we've actually been working really furiously behind the scenes, but like at a good clip. And I knew in January, when I put together my to-do list with the team, that I think my phrase on that list was tight but doable, and we are on track. We are meeting every deadline since I put that out in January, so this would keep us on track.
And am I understanding correctly that there is a possibility that for future annual plans that we'll have in-house capability and that won't have to be outsourced?
Absolutely.
Any other questions right now?
Just one more.
Sure, Heather.
So Wade Trim is going to come back with this plan that they've worked on with HUD for 5 years with a list of things that they think would be good ideas for using this money. Who then, is it, you must do number 1, you must do number 2, is it a à la carte menu? Who makes the decision on what gets done?
So the plan will be based in part on the stakeholder public input that we get. And of course, I think that one of the stakeholders are our elected officials and other people, other staff and departments and other organizations in our community that are interested in housing questions. So Wade Trim won't be handing us a plan that they've decided is
mandate,
best for our community. It will be informed by that public input from the stakeholder meetings. And there are 2 required stakeholder components as part of the process.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. Just going to say that I'm excited that we're able to participate in this now, and just kind of, I know because a lot of this is coming together at the same time, but excuse me, the addition to the planning staff has been a request for about 6 years now that finally happened. So I will anticipate that as we get into some of these things, as we're part of the MPOs and other new projects that touch on planning, that we might have to do this more often because the need was already there before some of these new onboarding. So to the excellent questions that were asked, this is going to be a learning process for staff as well. But yes, we have a very competent staff, and I look forward to us helping them get better at this, but also us jumping into the pool and getting in on that. So with that, I will take a motion if someone would like to make one. Go ahead, Jackie.
I move that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute a contract with Wade Trim in an amount not to exceed $66,590 for preparation of the consolidated plan and 5-year action plan, fair housing analysis, optional public outreach, CAOER, and as needed technical assistance with such contract subject as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney with funds from the Capital Projects Fund.
Support.
Thank you. Got a motion from Stanley, or sorry, motion from Anderson, support by Stanley. Are there any comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, any final comments from the commission? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Jackie, you had said that you wanted to pull 4 and 5 for the senior center. You had some questions. You want to ask them broadly first, or did you have them on each item specifically?
No, it applies to both 4 and 5.
Okay, go right ahead. Yep.
And it's simply a request for information about the funding source for both number 4 and 5.
I believe those come from the state money that we were granted, correct?
Yeah,
Would that be the Michigan Community Center Capital Projects Grant, the $2 million grant? Is that the one? I thought I saw a reference to that somewhere in here.
Let's see.
but I also.
Oh, there we go.
Well, we had a meeting
Michelle's up here.
today with the finance director and with Michelle Hunt, our parks director, to talk about all the funding sources and where we stand. So if Michelle wanted to speak to that, that would be wonderful.
Hi, thank you, Michelle Hunt. So right now, were you referencing the grant that we applied for the 1.9 million because we did not receive that grant?
She was basically, you were basically asking where's the funding
where's
coming
the
from
money
for the
coming
kitchen
from?
equipment and the furniture?
Sure. So right now, this goes back to what the city commission approved in August. So the contracts, has been approved today is to spend the Hallmark and Elmer's as well as the contingency and for $9 million. So right now we're working on those contracts which are already executed. And we have a number of sources that myself and the treasurer and the city manager are having meetings on to discuss and what we're going to do is we're going to come back to you in April, if I can say that right now, to tell every additional funding source that we will have identified will need to be individually approved. So that is something that we are going to come back. We have a list. Myself and the treasurer as well as the city manager will prepare a comprehensive list of those funding sources.
So in the meantime, though, as I recall, and it's a fuzzy memory sometimes, so please feel free to correct me, we have the $7 million that we got from the state to help. We've had some private funding and donations over the years as well that goes kind of in this pot of money for the senior center. And that's where a lot of this is coming from right now, are those pots that we've kind of already amassed, correct?
Yes, and also we have, we're working with the Senior Center Friends, recently changed their name, so it's important to note that there is a naming recognition event going on. We have to date received $53,000, so we hope if everything gets awarded on our list that we have, it's about $275,000. So everything from naming the pickleball courts to the rooms inside. So that is one of the things that we're being successful at right now. And then another item on the consent calendar is that Macaulay Trust. So that additional funding will also go towards the senior center.
Noted, noted. So is it lead times on this equipment that would cause us to be ordering it before we've identified the specific funding source?
Yes, so I contacted both vendors and I said, when would we need to purchase the equipment to get it in the building? Around September or October is what we're hoping. And the kitchen equipment needs more lead time than the furniture, the interior furnishings, because of the volume of what we're purchasing. So I actually waited to come to you until March versus in February when we had that information, and they said this was sort of that window that they had, so.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
But to clarify, so far we are not spending money that we don't have, though, essentially, for what we've approved and what's
Yes,
being enacted.
that's correct.
So that's what I wanted to clarify as well.
Yeah.
So I don't do this very often. Was that an answer to your earlier questions?
Yes.
And did anyone else have any questions before I do this, actually? Unless there are objections, what I will offer that someone can make the motion after I say it is doing both of these motions together instead of individually. So can we do that, Lauren?
Yeah.
Okay. So if someone would like to make the motion that the city staff recommend that the city commission issue a contract in the amount not to exceed $153,822.24 to Stafford Smith, Inc. for senior center kitchen equipment with funds available in the senior center in Fund 277, and I have the other one here, that the mayor and city clerk execute a contract with Interphase Interiors in the amount of $305,757.85 for senior center furniture with funds available in the senior center building fund, with such contract subject to its approval as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney. Does somebody want to make that? Thank you. And was there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson and Commissioner Stanley. Any further questions? Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for that. And lastly, we will move on to the purchase order of bathroom buildings for the West End Beach. And Commissioner Shaw, you had some questions about this?
As some of you might know, I've been complaining about the placement of the West End bathroom for 6 years because I think it's risky. the lake levels are estimated to rise by 17 inches over the next 25 years. And we are 3 feet below the normal, which they measured that from. It's a normal March level. We are 3 feet under that right now. So put 3 feet on and then put another 17 inches. So my concern is at the West End location, are they going to take the old building down, leave the foundation in place, and put those prefab structures on top of that foundation? Because I think you need to get as high as you can get.
Michelle, would you join us back up here again? Then, and kind of address that, both how it's going to be placed and how you measured, please.
Sure. So, Michelle Hunt, City Parks and Rec. So the footprint for the West End bathroom will be demolished. The foundation will be demolished. In addition, we're going to run a new sanitary line as well. So the bathroom will be put on 6 inches of crushed stone. And then the foundation itself is part of the building. So exact location of where those buildings are going to go, we have a survey that was done, and we're going to be working on a site plan with the engineering department. I can't tell you right now that it's going to go exactly on the same footprint. The bathrooms that we are ordering are smaller than the bathrooms that we have in terms of the length. They're smaller, but they have roughly the same occupancy. So they will take up a smaller footprint, and we are talking about right now moving them further south. And all of that also has to relate with when the new TART trail expansion happens. So we're just trying to be aware of the right-of-way and the TART trail and where the bathrooms are going to physically be located.
And these are the West End, as I recall, are the ones where we have paid a special attention to the ADA compliance and accessibility, correct?
Yes, both bathrooms will, yes.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner Shaw?
No, that's the first I heard that they were actually going to move the location. But it's
No.
not.
It's going to be in the same spot. We're potentially feet moving south is what I was referring to. It's not going to be, 30 feet over or in a different location. It will still be where the site is now, give or take a few feet.
Thank you.
Would anyone like to make a motion at this time? Furiously moving their iPads, so I'll give you a minute.
I move that the city manager be authorized to issue a purchase order to CTX Inc. for 2 bathroom buildings in the amount not to exceed $284,903 with funds available in the Capital Projects Fund.
All right, we got a motion from Commissioner Treadwell and a second from Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. Any other questions or comments from the commission at this time? Any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, everyone, thank you for getting us into the comments or questions on that. That was great. So now we will move to our old business, which is the board appointment and committee process, and I will hand that over to the city manager and/or Deputy Clerk Lutz.
I've got it pulled up. All right. Attached is a communication from City Clerk Benjamin Marentet with proposed amendments to the City Commission's policy on the interview and selection process for city boards and committees. Mr. Marentet is proposing these changes based on the feedback he heard from the Commission at the February 12th study session. And if the Commission wishes to approve these proposed amendments, then there is the motion in your packet. And then I'm not sure if you've got the executive summary in front of you. I don't think I need to read that out loud. Are there any questions on those proposed amendments?
And I'll just add 2 cents that myself, Commissioner Shaw, and Commissioner Treadwell were able to do an interview with Zoom with one candidate not in the room for an interview, and it was nice that we were able to get everybody done in that session and have the ability to interview everyone who was interested that could make it work. So we'll either take a motion or any questions. Go ahead, Jackie.
Well, I don't know if this is timely input or not, but I had just a few suggestions and comments on it as it stands. I certainly support the virtual interview option because we used that today again, and it worked very well. So I don't see that as needing to be ruled out for any logistical reasons. There was a comment within the proposal as to whether we would like assistance from the city clerk's office on generating questions. And my suggestion on that would be for us to consider use of a standardized scoring rubric for candidates that sort of gives a baseline of attributes and qualifications. I've given Sarah a copy of the one that we just sort of experimented with or looked at in today's ad hoc, and you know, would appreciate consideration of that. A question as to, I know the selection of ad hoc members is within our written policy, and I would like to suggest that we consider choosing ad hoc members at a public meeting. I think that it would inspire additional confidence and trust in the process. I think the more that we can do out in view, the better. And so I would suggest that for consideration.
Well, what I would say to the selection process, since that's not really up in this, is that we will pass that feedback back to the city clerk and potentially have him come back with either maybe a discussion as to why or why not, and whether that's feasible. So not ignoring it, but because it's not in this, there's no amendment to make. As to the rubric, I would like to see then, personally, I would like to see, and I shouldn't say personally, but I think for the discussion and clarity, a rubric be brought and presented to us then, and I would, just 2 cents, we can hash it out at a meeting. I would like that to be optional for a commissioner to use, but have it as availability. So both of those are great suggestions. I think we can pass them on to the clerk, but I don't know that I see editing any of these right now specifically for those, but I think that's part of this conversation that we can continue to have, if that works for you.
The random selection is part of the policy,
No, it's in here though, right? The new.
but not
Yeah,
of the
that's what I'm saying.
changes.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm
that's, sorry, sorry, let me clarify, because
Sorry,
I'm,
Amy.
no, because I'm saying it, but maybe I'm not saying it clearly, so that is absolutely fair. What we're discussing and on the agenda today that the public could review in advance were these suggested changes that came out of our study session a few weeks ago. So that's what we'll hold the discussion to now. The discussion about the drawing of names and a rubric are topics we have now written down to take back to the city clerk and potentially have brought back, or if for some reason they're not doable or whatever, is supply an answer one way or another on. Is that clear?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want us to get us in trouble legally, so thank you. Yes, Commissioner,
Yeah. Again, echoing some of what Mayor Shammer said, we did have a number of topics that we discussed, both at our study session and at previous things, but these are some specific changes, so I think that these, even though they're more limited than a number of the topics that we discussed, like, okay, there's only one thing about a specific situation about when incumbents would not necessarily go through the same interview process, when we discussed about a range of scenarios that incumbents could go through. As far as a rubric or pre-written questions, I like that idea, but I think that that could be an option available, but there are different preferences between commissioners, both the people that are here and the people that might be behind this desk in the future. That some might like that idea and others may not. Also, while it can seem more fair to have the exact same questions asked of all applicants, different applicants might, through their letter, their application, their resume, have attributes that shine through, or potential weaknesses, or they already answered a question that you came in with in their resume or letter that was not answered by the other candidates, and you don't necessarily need to ask a question that you already know.
before we get too in deep, and I'm guilty of having done this, litigating into what might be coming, let's focus on the items that were here, and that is my fault for
Just these
dragging
three.
us far afield on that one. I was thinking of Benjamin Marentet coming back and watching this meeting, but to be fair too, we can kick off a whole other study session, and that was my fault for leading us down a garden path there for a little bit. So, so does anybody have any questions or comments on the 3 proposals that are in this that we would be taking on today? Okay, seeing none, would someone like to make a motion? I gotta find the motion.
I'll make the motion that the City Commission approves the amendments to the City Commission policy on appointments and committees as included with the official meeting materials for the March 4th, 2024 meeting of the City Commission.
Support.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from up here?
Just one comment. I had missed the study session, and but this was something that I had been bringing up, and so I'm sorry about that, but I totally agree with what was the product of it.
Great, glad you can weigh in now. Any questions or comments from the public on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you, everyone. And as has been mentioned up here, this is still a conversation, and we made these changes a couple of years ago, and even sometimes when it was brought up, there was a discussion that if we had any critiques or tweaks we wanted to make, that must mean it was a bad process. And I think I'm very glad that everybody in this sitting commission is willing to have these conversations of how we can tweak it and make it just a little bit better. So I appreciate everybody's efforts on this. Thank you. All right, with that, we will move to new business and back with Art and City Manager Vogel for the private I'm not going to say it, the water services replacement.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Shamro.
I'm having trouble tonight.
Last fall, the city was notified that we were awarded an Eagle $2 million 100% earmark grant to replace private side galvanized water service lines that were at one time connected to a lead gooseneck near the city's water main. A lead gooseneck is about a 3-foot-long piece of lead pipe used as a transition between the brass connector at the water main and the threaded galvanized pipe. And I actually got to see one when I toured the facilities the other day. It's right in the lobby. As of 2017, the city has one known lead gooseneck remaining on a commercial building, and the occupants do not use it for drinking water. Prior to 2017, the city replaced the lead goosenecks and galvanized services lines between the water mains and curb stops near the property lines, which is owned by the city. Michigan's 2017 lead and copper rule declares that a galvanized water service is a lead service line if it is or ever was connected to a lead gooseneck, and requires the water utility to pay for replacing private water services from the curb stop near the right-of-way into the building or home. So I think that gives a little bit of the history there of the executive summary, and I think I'd let Art take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks. Art Krieger, Director of Utilities. Yeah, Liz summed it up pretty well. I'll just hit on a couple high points. This request originally came from former city manager Marty Coburn, and he requested the amount from the state, and Betsy Kofia, state representative, actually helped secure it. And being an earmark, it is part of the current state budget, so they build it right into the state budget. And so we fill out an application, which was in the packet, to secure the money to get it coming our way, but we do need the city commission's approval to accept the money. So I'd say another big win for the city, $2 million toward this mandate that we're working through. It's going to take time, but it's nice to have this kind of shot in the arm for finance.
And Art, you just brought up something, because I believe myself and Commissioner Warner were on the commission when this the mandate came down. And there was the big discussion of, we had been moved out of lead pipes except the one for quite a while before. It wasn't something we did in response to that. And this replacement of ones that even had previously existed, the price tag was pretty scary, I remember at the time, and we weren't sure where we were going to get the money. So I'm really excited that this came through, just to give a little bit of historical context on that. So thank you so much for getting that for us. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Art? Go ahead, Jackie.
I do.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I thought I saw somewhere in the language that there was a possibility that this $2 million grant could be used for replacements, but could also be used to pay down our 2022 loan balance from the DWSRF
Yes.
loan. And Do you have any inclinations as to which direction we're going with this?
Yes, I have an answer. I put that in the application hoping to give us some leeway, so we didn't commit to actually, like, if we came across less than we thought, maybe we didn't need to use it for that specific purpose. Tried to broaden it so we have more options. But they came back at the state level and said, sorry, you can't use it to pay off the loan. So it's a separate pot of money. You have to use it for this purpose, so.
Thank you, I'm delighted.
Yes. All right, great. Well, any other questions? Or I take a motion?
I'll move that the mayor and city clerk execute an agreement with the Michigan Department of Great Lakes and Energy to officially receive $2 million in grant funds for the replacement of private galvanized water service lines, with such agreement subject to approval as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney.
Support.
All right, Warner and Treadwell, thank you. Any other questions? Any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're moving on to the presentation by City Manager Vogel of the performance, which is a document that gets better and better every year, if I can say that, compliment to the clerk staff. And Liz is already in place to get this rolling, so let's hand it over to her.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission, and I just want to say a special thank you to Colleen Pavelio, our Communications Director, who put together this beautiful presentation, and we both walked through a few dry runs this afternoon to prepare, so thank you, Colleen. And thank you, everyone, for being here today. I am proud to present the 2023 accomplishments that have been outlined in the city's annual report, The Performance. In 2023, we welcomed a new mayor, Mayor Amy Shamro, and Commissioners Anderson and Shaw. Thank you to our newly elected and returning elected officials for all of your leadership. The Commission identified these goals and objectives through 2023, and they have guided staff through the accomplishments outlined in the performance report. $23.8 million in expenditures were approved for the fiscal year. These expenditure pie chart shows where the dollars are spent annually. For example, nearly 40% of the city's annual budget supports public safety through police and fire. The city's revenues for fiscal year 23-24 are $22.8 million. In 2023, the city launched an interactive capital improvement plan map to better communicate how a 6-year capital improvement plan, or CIP, is used to schedule public services expenditure. In 2023, projects identified in the CIP, or CIP, were nearly $40 million. In order to accomplish these goals, the city must seek other sources of funding to leverage budgeted dollars. In 2023, over $7 million were received in grant funding. A few of our larger grants include $1.6 million for the solar and battery storage project at the wastewater treatment plant, $1.8 million for a new Traverse City Fire Department ladder truck, and $2.3 million for the Brown Bridge Quiet Area land acquisition. The city managed a number of infrastructure improvements in 2023. Most notable was the culmination of a multi-year bridge rehabilitation project with the completion of the South Union Street Bridge and the North Cass Street Bridge. The total investment since 2021 is over $13 million. Additional projects included in the reconstruction of the Cass and Union Street intersection, the Madison and Jefferson reconstruction project, and of course, the long-awaited groundbreaking for a new senior center. Water systems were identified as a strategic priority with a goal to proactively and consistently maintain, conserve, and manage water and water systems to reduce harm to the systems themselves, as well as public health and safety. After the adoption of the 5-year project plans for drinking and clean water, Project 1 included the Boardman Wall Stabilization and Sewer Relocation Project, which protected and moved a 24-inch sanitary sewer main that serves the entire west side of Traverse City and portions of Garfield and Elmwood Townships. Investments into the water, wastewater, sewer, and sanitary collection systems exceeded $10 million in 2023. Connecting people with each other and nature was identified as a strategic priority with a goal to provide safe and accessible public spaces where people may recreate, socialize, or enjoy just being alone in nature. While a number of our larger parks saw improvements, including the green light for land acquisition at the Brown Bridge Quiet Area, we are proud of the investments that were made in several of our small neighborhood parks with play equipment upgrades and new basketball hoops. An exciting accomplishment in 2023 was the homologation certification received for the Nordic course at Hickory Hills, which was celebrated with a junior national qualifier race in January of 2024. The city is demonstrating its commitment to reducing its carbon footprint and becoming more resilient to the impacts of climate change. The city was thrilled to have received a USDA grant for a compost and food waste reduction program. We will team up with Seeds on the project, and we are looking forward to a launch later in 2024 once the vessel that is currently in production is received. In addition, programs and initiatives adopted will enable staff to identify the most energy, environmentally, and fiscally responsible ways to achieve climate resiliency. From the adoption of the electrification policy, Traverse City Light and Power's Climate Action Plan, to small initiatives like tree reuse and beet heat, we are working towards a more sustainable future. Housing and homelessness was identified as a strategic priority with a goal to increase opportunities for more diverse housing through public and private options. Supporting affordable housing initiatives in Traverse City is essential to ensure that all residents, regardless of income, have access to safe and stable living environments, promoting social equity and stability within the community. 381 units through pilot arrangements, or payment in lieu of taxes, were approved in 2023, 539 since 2019, and 35 permanent supportive housing units for the chronically unhoused. In addition, the city amended ordinances to allow additional dwelling types to modify dimensional standards to increase housing variety. In late 2022, the city launched the QRT, or Quick Response Team, and added a law enforcement embedded social worker that has worked significantly in the space of homelessness in our community. The program has made strides in its first full year to collaborate with the Crisis Intervention Team on overdose prevention programs and establish connections with vulnerable people in the community. In 2023, the QRT had 118 active participants, with 88% experiencing crises related to homelessness. Mobility was identified as a strategic priority with a goal to invest in multimodal mobility strategies and existing and future infrastructure so that individuals of all ages, abilities, and income have a network of complete, barrier-free, safe, year-round access to our community's amenities and basic needs. Building upon our mobility network, the city moved forward with the TART Extension and Improvement Project. With the help of a $500,000 grant, Phase 1 is currently being explored and expected to initiate this year. In addition, the Mobility Action Plan draft was completed in 2023 and will now fold into the Master Plan rewrite process for review and approval. 2023 saw a significant amount of projects that were accomplished through your leadership and the efforts by our hardworking staff. I will close with a number of images that are up in front of you. These are pictures of you and our staff out and about in the community. We thank you for your leadership, and we also thank the staff for their hard work on these past year's projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liz. This is a good reminder of all the good work that our staff does and the community does as part of our partnerships. So thank you for that. Did anybody have any questions or want to say anything? Go ahead, Jackie.
I'd just like to echo our thanks to the staff who have made all of these wonderful accomplishments possible. I'd also like to make a request for our next performance review to ask for some context. You know, I found myself looking at the gee whiz figures and saying, that's really impressive. It would be even more impressive if I understood how that compared to last year, or perhaps how some of those numbers compared to similar communities within the state of Michigan. So I'd encourage that we take this exercise one step further and add some context so that we can really understand it at a much deeper level.
Great. Excellent. Any other comments or questions? With our great thanks, we accept the performance this year then. And we will now move on to item 3 of the, I'm sorry, I forgot if we were new business. I almost questioned myself about the restoration and fixes to the Larry C. Hardy parking deck. We'll have that for you, Liz, to lead.
Yes, attached, I'm just going to read the executive summary. Attached is a communication from Transportation Mobility Director Nicole Van Ness, who's here with us this evening, recommending that a contract be authorized for parking structure restoration at the Larry C. Harding Parking Garage and Old Town Parking Garage, which is also recommended by the Downtown Development Authority Board of Directors. And if you have any specific questions, I would direct those to Nicole.
Open the floor. Any questions? Oh, Mitch, you've got fingers.
Yes, I don't know if you feel comfortable answering this, but could you provide some context or more information about why you went with the applicant in the bid process that you chose?
Good evening, Nicole Van Ness, Transportation Mobility Director. So this is not our first go-around with these repairs. We do this restoration assessment every 5 years. It's important for us to keep on that plan because that ensures that the repairs that we're having with the concrete, extend the life of the structure itself. And so, every time that we do an assessment, it's kind of a live and learn or reevaluate for the next 5 years. So with the process for the restoration, as you may recall, we approved a contract with Restore out of Holland. That group assisted us while Tim Lodge, former city engineer, retired. And so with that, they prepared and worked with us on all of the conditions and assessing needs that needed to occur for the next 5 years. Once we received the proposals, we had 4. Again, one of those live and learn experiences. We really made sure that we included companies that have had work with parking structures instead of just companies that are used to sealing concrete. And so with that, we relied on Restore to assist us in the evaluation. The low bid that we had, we worked with in our last 5-year conditions assessment, and some of the repairs we felt were subpar as far as keeping up. It's only been 5 years, and they're also included 4 repairs this year. And so with those not extending a life expectancy or a reasonable amount of time, we felt as though the low bid was inadequate, and we chose to move forward with a second bid. So we are not required, from my understanding, to accept a low bid, so we do have some discretion with that within what's reasonable. Also, I would point out that Restore's estimate or probable repair costs are still low, or they were higher than the Pullman bid.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Heather.
On our package, page 170 and the top of 171, I think these bidders are referring to 2024. It's going back and forth between 2018 and 2024, but at the top of the page, 171, it says Ram Construction, and then there's an asterisk, and then it says submission terms not followed.
So they didn't apply properly?
Yeah, so within the bid documents, we do put forth how you're supposed to submit your bids. Bids were required to be printed and submitted to the city engineer's office. This bid came in electronically just before the submission deadline.
Any other questions? I'll take a moment really quickly here to say, too, I know we've had some discussions here, but also at the DDA board level. Primarily, when we're talking about the future of our parking decks, primarily I'm talking about the Old Town deck, which is on this list as well. And I think there's going to be some good conversation happening over the next couple of years here as we've kind of all figured out where we're going in this post-lockdown. I won't say post-COVID, COVID's still a thing, but as far as what workforce and everything looks like, of what might start happening down on that south end of town by 8th Street, by the Old Town Deck. One of the conversations we've been having is, right now it's not very full. So how does that work to get it filled? How does that work for the future of the buildings around it that had previously been a lot of office space, but office space use is shrinking dramatically right now, and engaging people to maybe look at some of that office space to convert to housing. So there's where the decks are, and this is just a moment to jump off because they're on topic here and we don't always have that conversational lead, that there are some conversations happening about the decks as a larger picture. So I just wanted to share that with everyone while we're having this conversation about upkeep of them. Go ahead, Heather.
Well, I continue to be a little confused about the letter that we received from Denwith, Vitilio, and Sasak.
Would you like to address that more?
Saying that they were told they could submit electronically, and then they're being told that was.
Right, so that, I sent an attorney-client memo this
It
afternoon.
didn't really address that.
The reason that the low bid is not being recommended tonight is not the submission. That's a red herring that in the letter that you all received from the low bidder's attorney. The reason that the low bidder is not being recommended is because the previous experience that we've had with the low bidder. The city is not required to accept the lowest bid. There's discretion involved, and the city can accept the lowest responsive bid, and that can take into account any number of factors, including previous experience. So the letter that you got from the attorney is really pointing you at a factor that is not in play.
Although it is indicated on page 171 that they did not submit their documents correctly.
Correct. They did not, but in the bid packet and in all the documentation and all of the city's standard RFPs, the city can waive any irregularities and accept bids even if they're not provided in the correct format, which was what was done in this instance. And the reason that this bid has not been recommended by staff is not the format that it was submitted in. It's other reasons.
Yeah, I mean, your argument makes sense, but their argument also could make sense.
But I think what Lauren is saying, that the asterisk is here to note that that was what was happened, but the city staff used discretion to still allow the bid to be considered. So they really weren't excluded from any process.
That's correct.
And if I'm, if I'm hearing Nicole correctly, it was in part due to prior experience with this bidder and the work not holding up as well as we hoped.
I understood.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Stanley.
I just have a quick question of Ms. Van Ness, which is, so you said that the repairs by this company who had the low bid that were done 5 years ago are now having to be redone as part of this year's work. How typical is that for a repair done 5 years ago to need to be readdressed in that time frame?
Sure. So the repair that I'm specifically talking about is the joint that goes from the ground level on the ramp to the second level at the Hardy structure. That joint was original to the building when this repair was performed 5 years ago. Okay. So the fact that that joint lasted just over 15 years, it was repaired and it hasn't lasted 5 years and is called out for a repair, I think depicts, the typical life expectancy. I mean, it may not last another 15 years, it may be more like 12, but it just shows that this repair has not held up. And there's other instances that we can point to, but that's one that is over offices. So, with water could cause additional damage.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mark.
I'm prepared to make the motion, but just for clarification, included in it, there's a 10% contingency be authorized and managed by the city engineer. Is that included in?
The 909.
Yeah, in the number, or is that in addition to?
It's included in the number, isn't it, when we get those in front of us?
Clear.
I believe in the documentation itself, and refreshing Lauren's
I can
memory
read
while
the
she checks.
motion
Yes,
and then I
it
can.
is.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then ask, but, so I move that the city commission execute a unit prices contract with Pullman SST for parking structure restoration in the amount of $909,180 for maintenance and repairs, and that a 10% contingency be authorized and managed by the city engineer, subject to approval as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney, with funds available in the auto parking system fund.
Before we get a second, I'm going to actually have you ask that you strike that, because here in the last paragraph before the recommendation under the executive summary, it says maintenance and repairs inclusive of 10% contingency. So the price, everything in there should be inclusive of that 10%.
Can I just say amend my motion to?
Nobody seconded it, so you can just say strike that, and we'll. It's kind of
Strike.
like how Sarah will say something magical, and we'll be like, yes, that's what we said.
Done.
That's
Great.
what we're doing for you.
Gotcha.
Okay, so Mark Wilson has made the motion,
Support.
and Mitch Treadwell has seconded. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, bring it back to the commission. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to our last action item here, we have appointments. And as previously was briefly alluded to, we had 2 days of interviews for the DDA, which included our first Zoom interviewee, and great to hear that we've done it again. So we had a lot of great people apply, a lot of different interests and engagement, and some common themes through it, like communication, but also some very different ideas, which was great to hear. So I will open up to either of the commissioners, Treadwell or Shaw, that served with me, if you want to add anything else to it, or make a motion. Anybody can make a motion. My finger's moving. Go ahead, Mitch.
Well, I'd say that we are continuing to keep this board having a diverse range of backgrounds and viewpoints. People both new to our community and that have been here a long time. So with that, I'll make the recommendation that Gary Howe and Mike Powers are appointed to the terms expiring September 15th, 2024, and a subsequent full-term appointment expiring September 15th, 2028, seats previously held by Michael Brodsky and Pam Marsh, and that Shelley Spencer be appointed to the term expiring September 15th, 2025, seat previously held by Pam DeMerle.
As recommended by the...
As recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Mayor Shamrow, Commissioner Shaw, and Commissioner Treadwell be approved.
Excellent, thank you.
Support.
Thank you. Any comments on this? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be voting no on this. I would support 2 of the candidates here, but I can't support Mr. Howe, and I'll explain my reasoning. It's nothing personal with him, but in my opinion, the DDA has broken trust with the public. It's been very clear over the past many months. And part of that comes from the absolutism that, TIF must be extended at all costs. And the standard talking points of the DDA are what Mr. Howe included in his opinion piece in the Record Eagle. Again, that like TIF must be extended at all costs. And I think doubling down on that breaking of the public trust is not helpful. So, thank you.
Thank you for your input on that, Commissioner Warner. I think we had some very good discussions in the ad hoc meetings that were very insightful, and we'll see what comes down the line. We've already seen the DDA remove some items from the TIF plan, too. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson?
No.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Werner?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Motion passes. We welcome the new members and thank Michael Brodsky, Pam Marsh, and I missed who else was on. Pam DeMerle, sorry, I forgot we had both Pams, for their service. They all did excellent jobs on the board, and we look forward to working with our new members. Okay, final thoughts here. We have no reserved public comment. Is there any general public comment at this time? So you can make a comment on anything you'd like. Please approach the podium, and we'll let Sarah handle the public comment rules.
We ask that you state your name and address, indicate if you are a city resident, non-city resident, and/or city business owner. We have a 3-minute time allotment per speaker. When your time has elapsed, the timer will beep. And finally, we request that all language be respectful to all parties.
Go right ahead.
Chris Reed, 630 Cottage Drive, Apartment 1B, Traverse City, Michigan, resident. So the last study session, last Monday you guys had, we had a person up here for public comment that was addressing the homelessness issue. It was from the Boardman Lake residential area. That person said that there's that they 10 acres somewhere in it magically, and that you should use whatever funding that was going to be used for the year round into this other project. And she didn't specify where. So when she went back after the meeting was over with, she did talk to Daryl Nelson, which is the county commissioner, and it was indicating that that would be Garfield Township. And unfortunately, I don't think that the city can just gift money over to Garfield Township for anything that might be used for the safe harbor in year-round operations. So, thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Any other general public comment?
Hello, my name is Harry Swiston. I live at Peninsula Drive and Peninsula Court. High school's at the end of my street. Because of the pandemic, there was a move to local transfer of M37 to the city for local control. In fact, back in February 6th of 2020, Beth Milliken wrote an article, appeared in the ticker, where the TC, GRC, MDOT, and TC Commission were in agreement to the transfer of it. It was called The Future of Peninsula Drive, M37. It had a page that looked like this on the front of it. And it's been over 4 years now. That meeting never was held. Like I said, the Road Commission, MDOT, y'all were in favor of, and some of your new people now, I understand that. The only objection was Peninsula Township. Rob Manigault, who doesn't work there anymore, had some concerns, but I think safety trumps all those concerns that he had. The curve, I'm a former high school driver ed teacher, and the sight line caused by the curve coming north on Peninsula Drive by Bryant Park totally makes it very difficult and dangerous to cross by Peninsula Court and Peninsula Drive, which is on my property there. And being retired, I see people trying to cross there all the time. It's dangerous. I've got grandkids. I've literally been mowing my lawn, and I've had to stop traffic to let people go across there. People just keep coming off the Peninsula. There's no lines there. I mean, these were adults standing there. These weren't kids. Kids too, but the people won't stop. Now, you can't make the people stop, but if we can get the local control, 2 things right away would help it tremendously. Reducing the speed limit to 25 and then painting some white lines there. So just like we have in the rest of the city, if somebody wants to cross there, put them little red signs and the people would stop. It is, I've communicated with MDOT, Rick Lippert, who's now in Cadillac. He's the one that told me the meeting never took place because of the pandemic. So I'm urging that the people push this thing. It's been 4 years. Since then, we've had more and more traffic. My SUV went up 30% this year. That means this is a very valuable, in 22 years, it never went up 30% in 1 year. That means that this is a very valuable place. People want to live here. People come here. There's 10 wineries out on the peninsula that were never there before. Anyway, I hope you people would take a ride up the peninsula. I don't think you can take that turn.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I just want to show you one more thing.
No, sir, you've had your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Me. These are
Sir.
people that want this done. please do something about it. It's not gonna cure itself. It's only gonna get worse.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment at this time? Seeing none, any final comments from commissioners? Seeing none, I will just let the public know that for the first time in my recollection, certainly in my 8 and a little over years, we will not have any study sessions in March. So everyone mark your calendars. Next week, we have several staff people getting ready and leaving for a conference that starts Tuesday morning early. So we'd like to get them on the road safely, not after a commission meeting. And the last week of March, we typically, and will continue to do so, do not schedule a meeting because of the community-wide spring break. Not only will you see us not meeting on, you'll probably see a lot of businesses closed for a week or two there too. It's a very quiet time here, and we like to extend that to staff and fellow commissioners often are usually traveling at that time. We will have a meeting in 2 weeks, regular meeting. We have checked in with staff. This was all kind of okayed. Liz assessed what we had going on and what was coming. Topics that we might have covered will be covered at other meetings, so this is not holding anything up. If it was, we would have the meetings. But given the timing of everything that's out there right now and these obligations and considerations, we will not be having study sessions this month. So everybody else who's not traveling, or even if you are, enjoy a couple free Mondays. We don't get them very often.
We'll talk about April at the next meeting then?
Yeah. So thank you all for coming tonight, and we will see you back here in 2 weeks for a city commission meeting. Adjourned.
Good job, everybody.